Tired of everyone telling you to find your passion, but no one telling you how? Welcome to the Korean Connection, and I'm your host, Korean, an attorney with a passion for empowering others to use their many talents and skills towards a path of self-discovery and alignment. Join me as I share my personal stories, professional insights, and practical tips, and how you can connect the dots between what you're great at and turning your passions into purpose. Let's connect. Push it to the left, I can't go no more. Make it like no, I'm coming back home. I'm trying to roll all my you. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Write my name in the stone. Cause I'm coming back home. Cause I'm coming back home. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Korean Connection. Guys, can you believe this is the recording of my fifth episode? This started a few short weeks ago with a dream, and now we're on episode 5. And I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in so far, who's listened to the episodes, who've offered feedback. I'm so eternally grateful. And I just want to recognize the 100 followers that I have on Instagram, the 100 followers I have on YouTube, and all the people. I'm sorry, I should say 29 subscribers and 100 views on YouTube. And I just wanted to take the time to recognize that because I'm internally grateful. I'm not focusing on the people who are not here. I'm focusing on the people who are here and the people who have chose to remain and to listen, who can get something from the information that I'm giving. You guys are my tribe. You guys are my community, and I'm going to continue to pour into you. So thank you so very much. So today's topic, I wanted to talk about acknowledging the season that you're in. And in connecting your passions to purpose, I know sometimes it can be a very frustrating one because sometimes we just fail to recognize the season that you're in your life, right? What season are you currently in? Are you even in a space right now to pursue anything, right? Are you in a space right now where really what you need to do is hunker down, right? When I think about my own journey, I think about, and this is something that I do, and I have to keep on reminding myself of what actually transpired during those period of time, right? I think about there's like this in my mind. There's this gap of time where so much could have happened, so many missed opportunities. I was so driven, and I could have done so much more. And you think about like, oh my goodness, if I could get that time back. But what you fail to understand is that was a season that you were in your life. It was a season that you were in that was necessary to the growth that is to come, right? Because you can't see the future. You don't know what skills you're going to need, what skills you require in order for you to get there. And so all you think about is the deficit, all the things that you didn't do, but you're not really thinking about what the life's lesson is that you're learning in the season that you're currently in. And in order to know what the lessons are that you're supposed to be deriving from the season that you're currently in, you have to take some time to stop, right? You have to take some time to stop and reflect on what's happening in your life currently, right? What's going on? Are you just starting out, a career after graduating college, and you have maybe not so many obligations that's going to keep you from pursuing those things, and you may have the fuel at that time to kind of go full force and 100 into pursuing those things? You may be in that season in your life. Or you may be in a season where you're starting a family, right? You're starting a family, and you're learning. You're getting accustomed to the changes in your own body, in your own body chemistry, in your environment around you. The changes that's changing other people around you. Are your children starting to be school-aged children, right? Are you preparing them for that? Are they going off to college? Are you preparing them for that? Are you in a season of stillness, right? those are the things in terms of trying to figure out, in connecting those dots. A part of it is realizing where you are currently in your life. And when I think about, sometimes I have to remind myself, of what season I was in. Sometimes you don't even know what season you're in until you can look back and like, oh, yeah, that was definitely the season I was in. I just didn't recognize it. I wasn't present in the moment enough to recognize that that season that I was in was just a season of just growing, or in a season of putting my passions on pause, right? Delayed, not denied, right? You have to recognize that that is a season as well. Pause can be your season, right? Or you're in a season of growth. The point is just try to sit down and recognize what season you're in. Because when I think about my own journey, how I started my career, I started out my career, with a plan, right? They say if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. And so, when you're entering adulthood, you need to have a plan for your life, right? You have, if you don't have a plan, you sort of kind of fall for anything, right? And you sort of lead a life where, with no structure or organization, and it's harder for you to see where your path is trying to align you to when you haven't put any thought into it, right? So, when you're at the stage where, when you're graduating college and you're thinking about what your path is, you have to take some time to think about, okay, well, what is it that I ultimately want to do? What are the steps that I need to take in order to get it? You have to create some sort of plan, right? But what you don't plan for is all the derailments that life is going to throw your way, right? You don't plan for the death that you're going to experience during that time. You don't plan for the heartbreak that is right around the corner, right? For a crushing relationship that you thought was a part of your life's plan, right? You don't plan for the financial plummet that you find yourself in, right? You don't plan for the unexpected pregnancy that's coming your way. And so life sort of derail the plans that you set out for yourself, right? And then you have to sort of figure out, how are you now going to incorporate these things into your life? And then how do these things can be incorporated into my life's goals, right? Into the plans that I've set out for myself. So, guys, when I think about my own life's journey, and how I developed soft skills that are now looking back, propelled me, gave me so much hard skills. Now I look at them as hard skills, right? That propelled me towards my future and my purpose. You know, there was a period of my time where, after I had my two children, I found myself being a single mom, right? I was going through a divorce, and we all know the toll that takes on an individual. Just you as an individual, not even considering the toll it takes on the children. But I found myself in a place where I was a single mom, right? And you know, unfortunately and fortunately, finding myself in that position, it didn't allow me the space to even think about what was happening to me at this time, right? And when I think about it now, I have to remind myself of all the things I went through back then. Because if I think like Korean things, all I think about is all the things I didn't accomplish during that time, right? All the goals that didn't get met during that time. But when I really think about it, and I talk to sometimes a friend of mine always say to me, Korean, now that I have kids, I don't even know how you did it. You were on trials, you were doing this, you were doing that, you were running from daycare, you had to do the pickup and the drop offs, and you did it all, right? And it's not until somebody mentions stuff like that to you that you realize, geez, like that was a rough time I was going through. I was going through my own personal struggles, right? I was going through a divorce. I was going through the loss of my best friend. I was going through, just, figuring out life now alone. Like I didn't set out to do this stuff by myself. Someone promised me a lifetime partnership. I didn't set out to be a single mom. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm experiencing these new challenges that these children are bringing. You're thinking about your support or the lack thereof. You just have to figure it out. And you don't even have time to process what you need to figure out. You just know every day there's a new fire that you have to put out, and you're putting out fires, right? And I you know, think about what happened to me during those times where I have to, you know, drop off do the drop off at school for the kids, and then jump on the MTA. The MTA guys, like, drop the kids off for school before 8 o'clock, get back, get back to my house, park my car, walk to the train, take the train all the way to Lower Manhattan, had a full day, leave work, come back to pick the children up by 5:15, or endure penalty with the aftercare, because after 3 lateness they kick them out, right? I mean, I just remember when I tell you, like, running from the train to the daycare, running, sweats, bullying. When people ask me how I lost weight during that time, that's how I lost weight, right? It's running, it's being stressed out, it's the anxiety of all these things, all the responsibilities that I had going on at that time, while maintaining a full-time job, right? While even excelling at your job, because, you still have to perform at your job. You still have to stand out. You still have to do all the things. And you're doing these things simultaneously, because life doesn't allow you to pause one side of your work in order to work on something else. They're all happening at the same time, right? And you're putting the kids in. I remember one time I didn't even have a vehicle in order to transport the kids to school. There's so much I can tell you that was going on for me during that period of time in my life. It was chaotic. It was traumatic. It was toxic. It was draining. It was depressing. It was a lot. And, people looking from the outside wouldn't even know any of that was happening. They don't know. They just see you pushing forward, right? And you yourself don't even know what's happening. You are just pushing forward, right? It's now looking back at my life back then that I'm able to connect all of those dots to realize, wow, life was preparing me for my purpose. Life was giving me all of the soft skills, all the hard skills that I needed in order to handle the responsibility that's going to come later on in life. Life was teaching me lessons that I didn't even know I was learning at the time, right? So in looking back, I just want to implore, you're not going to see, especially us as Black women, right? You're just designed to just push through. You don't even have the time to sit and think about what you're pushing through. You're just pushing through. And, it's of no surprise that, we are so resilient, right? It's of no surprise that we don't even know, what self-care is, because life doesn't allow you the opportunity to practice self-care often. You're just always sort of in a phase of, of pushing through. And so I just want you guys to recognize that you won't be able to see sometimes you won't even be able to see and recognize what season you're in unless unless you have some intentionality in seeing that season. When you take something, for instance, as, the birth of a child, there's nothing that really prepares you for that. Right? You have no clue, even at the onset of pregnancy, what is going to even happen to your body, right? As a woman, no one can sit down and really explain to you what pregnancy feels like, because it's so unique and it's so different. Everyone's experience is so different. Certainly there's common things that, pregnancy bring, but certainly not everybody experiences it in the same way. So even something like a pregnancy for a woman, you don't necessarily even understand what adjustments you need to make in advance because you don't know what's going to happen. And so you kind of just find yourself in a position where you sort of just have to roll with the punches, right? And that's one of the things that kind of life teaches you. When life throws things your way, you have to figure out a way to sort of roll with the punches and find a way to sort of, in a way, in a small way, try to continue on with your plans even though delayed, right? There's still a way in which for you to sort of align your vision irrespective of what the life circumstances are. But in the same that same example of the birth of a child, one, you're acclimating your body to what is to come, right? Your body starts sending you these signals. You have to adjust to, oh, now I feel sick in the morning. I have to adjust to how I eat foods and react to those things. How quickly can I eat? How, is it wise to eat as soon as I get up? You have to make these adjustments to just the mere body chemistry of what's happening to you internally, not even the external factors of what's gonna come and affect you in any sort of way. You're sort of like experiencing just the emotion of it as a human being. And that's just something not, this can be not only in the sense of a pregnancy. For a man, it's sort of, just using a man for example and how that would resonate for you is anything that happened in your life that that brings on like a strong sense of an emotional response, something that your body have to get used to, something that you have to acclimate to, something that you have to grow into. And that could also just be in, maturing or growing from who you were into the person that you want to be, right? Life kind of throw you these circumstances that allow you to try to push past and grow beyond them in order to prepare you for something next. So in that vein, when you're thinking about the challenges that life are throwing at you, try to think of it from that perspective, right? Things are going to happen that's going to derail you from your plans, but how are you going to tackle them is a part of the journey, right? So just thinking about my own experience when I started having children, before I started having children, I simultaneously had goals for myself, right? And naively, thinking that these goals for myself would still just be, along, parallel alongside these things that are simultaneously going to be happening to me. And you don't realize how those things have profound impact, right? On the speed at which those goals happen, and whether or not those goals even happen at all, right? And those are things that you have to prepare yourself for. So before I even started my journey of having children, that sort of life altering experience, I had so many goals for myself. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to law school, right? That was a goal. And then I had to graduate law school. That was another goal. Passing the bar was another goal, right? And in order to do that, I had to prepare myself for that. I had to mentally prepare myself for that process. I had to physically prepare myself for that process. Literally. I mean, mentally in sort of like the mental training, the mental exercise of doing the actual work, right? But also physically training myself for the bar. I remember during that time, I decided to start running. And that's not something that anyone had introduced to me at that phase in my life, but somehow my body knew that that's what it needed to do. And I just decided that I needed a morning routine that's going to propel me into kind of getting my day started. So I would start my day off by going for a run. And then after I go for a run, I'll get back, prepare myself, and I'll just pick myself up and I'll go to the library and I'll be at the library from about noon till about midnight, right? And that was literally my routine while I was studying for the bar. But those are things that I did to sort of prepare myself mentally and physically for that challenge, right? And, same thing when something life altering happens, like a pregnancy, your body actually starts preparing yourself for all the things that are going to come that you don't even know is going to come, right? So you start preparing yourself for the morning sickness, and you start preparing yourself for the extra weight that your body's going to feel. You start preparing yourself for the emotional roller coasters that all the hormonal changes that are going to come, and start preparing your family too, right? The husband, the boyfriend, different. They also get a taste and glimpse of all those things in order for them to start mentally preparing for those things as well. But it's not necessarily, you have to, preparation during the process is something that's going to come naturally, innately, that your body sort of does by its own inner workings of what the body does. And so you also have to mentally prepare yourself and do the things that you need to do in order to prepare for that life challenge, right? But in talking about how you deal with those life challenges, some things such as a pregnancy, while you're still on your path of pursuing your passions and connecting them to your purpose. In those times, when I think about that period of time for me in my life, I started my career before I had children. And I had the opportunity to do that and start out working at the DA's office. And, you know, it was great that I not had an opportunity for a short few, probably I think months or a year into my career. Now I had all these goals, like, okay, I'm gonna do the DA's office for 5 years, and then after the DA's office, I'm gonna, go to the U.S. Attorney's office for another 5 years, and after those 10 years, then I'll have enough experience to pursue a judgeship, and I'm gonna be a judge because, again, on my life's goal and my purpose was to be able to offer guidance and assistance in a corrective way, right? In a way that's going to allow people to be more fulfilled in their own way, or to bring some sense of justice or reconciliation. That's always been the driving force behind my passions. I'm coming to learn now, looking at all the commonalities, all the things that I thought were of interest to me, right? So at that time, it was supposed to be being a judge, right? And then I started the DA's office, and within the first year of my DA's office, I got pregnant, right? And so that was a derailment of some sort, right? And of course, it sort of slowed me down. It forced me to have to take maternity leave and, not, while I'm sort of on the decline in that respect, to prepare for my family, my colleagues are now on the incline, right? Because they're gaining the skills. They're moving on to the next level. They're taking on harder cases, more complex cases, start doing felonies. They're going into the grand jury, and I'm here now pregnant. And, even though I had my own personal life's goal for myself and my plan for myself that I set out for myself, I was now entering a different season of my life, right? I'm entering a season where I'm preparing my body for children, right? I'm preparing my body, my mind, my life, my choices. I'm preparing now for this new unexpected thing that I have no idea what impact is going to have on my life, right? And so I went on to have not just one, but two children. And, now they're, one is turning 14 on Monday and the other is turning 11 in August. But back then, when I think about all the goals I had for myself, having children, I didn't realize or acknowledge at that time what impact that was going to have on those life's goals. And what I chose to focus on during that period of time was the inadequacies that, were sort of, or the deficiencies, or, my inability at that time to simultaneously focus on the plan, on the goal, right? Without realizing that outside of your plans, life is going to happen. And having children was not a bad thing, right? Certainly not a derailment is how I perhaps would have classified, or is classifying it. Definitely not a derailment. Certainly they brought purpose into my life, fulfillment into my life. They brought a whole nother aspect into my life that provided me with skills that I'm now able to utilize, right? That I would not have been able to gain those skills that parenting taught me any other way but by being a parent, right? And so When I think of, in thinking about those times, I was so hard on myself thinking back about how all the things that I didn't accomplish during that, say 5 or 10 year period. When all of my colleagues that were excelling and, doing all the things that I wanted to do, I saw it as frustrating my purpose, right? And it wasn't now looking back, I can know that my purpose wasn't being frustrated, right? I was just now in a different season of my life. I was now in a season where I now had to put my goals, that plan, sort of like on the back burner a little bit, and try to develop those soft skills that goal, that plan, that purpose that ultimately I wanted to see and pursue is going to require a certain type of person that I hadn't become yet. That being a parent is now going to show me to become, right? It's going to teach me all of those soft skills, how to multitask, how to develop, how to teach, how to guide, how to navigate, not only myself, but other people through their life challenges, how to problem solve, when there's a lack of communication between, you and the next person. When a baby is born, they don't know how to communicate. You're literally left fending for yourself in terms of figuring out, what is this human being trying to communicate to me? What skill I have that they require in order to survive? I have to be able to recognize when that child, needs a feed without them being able to communicate that to me. I need to recognize the differences in a cry as to, are they hungry? Are they sick? Are they tired or are they in pain, right? You're able to sort of pick up on those subtleties that you can't learn. I mean, you can learn, like in other ways, but that was my season to learn those things. And had I not, I didn't know that I was even learning those things in the season. That's the thing, right? When life throw you those challenges and you have no choice but to sort of, grab them by the horn and kind of push through and handle whatever comes, you're not realizing that you're developing these skills unknowingly, right? You're just kind of doing them. And that's what the universe gives you as a gift, right? That's the reason why it throws those obstacles in the way, because it knows the skills that you need in order to carry through to your purpose. See, you will learn that your purpose is never really derailed, right? Life gives you things and challenges that's going to allow you to be able to better propel yourself towards your purpose or to better prepare you for your purpose. And that season for me was a season of realizing that, okay, Kareen, and also recognizing too that, the challenges that life are going to throw you are going to keep on building skills. So first it was about having the child and, and figuring out those soft skills and figuring out how to effectively communicate and act and provide value to that small human being, without them being able to communicate that to you, right? And then, of course, they get to a stage where they can communicate that to you, and then the communicate sort of changes. So you're always sort of adapting to these different circumstances. As soon as you sort of get used to or acclimated to one phase of the child's development, you're now acclimating to something else. And then on top of acclimating to just the human being that you're interacting with, it's now all the external forces that are now being thrown on not only you, but on that human being too, that you have to sort of figure out, right? And, just even if you take the time to even dissect all of those little things that happens to you, even through the lens of a parent, right? You you get to understand why you're a better business person, why you're a better employer, right? Why you're able to manage the expectations of others, right? By virtue of being a parent, right? You're developing the skills that you needed to develop in order to propel you closer to your purpose. And so just even acknowledging, it would make the process so much more graceful, right? If you would just acknowledge the season that you're in. One, ask yourself certain questions. What is happening in your life right now that may frustrate the purpose that you think is being frustrated, right? That may not even don't even think about it as a frustration. That may slow down your process. What's happening in your life right now that maybe you need to figure out what is a skill that this challenge wants me to develop, right? What is this new life's challenge that life is throwing at me? What lesson am I supposed to be gaining out of this challenge? And now, having gone through all of those things back then, what that I thought to be such a derailment, such a huge pause, right? That gave me such a late start in life, what were those lessons that I had to learn in order to be where I am today? Now that I'm in the space, I can look back and tell you all the things I learned. But I wouldn't have been able to tell you all these things back then because I wasn't trying to remain present. I wasn't trying to just acknowledge within myself, what season am I in right now in my life? Yes, I want to be a badass attorney, a boss ass chick. Yeah, I want to be a judge and I want to be a federal prosecutor. But now you're a mom. So, what are you going to do? What skills can you develop being a mom that's going to make me be an even better, prosecutor or judge, ultimately one day, right? You don't think about those things, but now I can think about them and look back. But it's just about taking the time right now, just acknowledging the season you're in, right? And it takes some thought. And it's not easy to even sometimes recognize the season you're in because sometimes you're just bombarded by so many different things, right? You're experiencing a death in your family simultaneously with a birth, right? And so you have to sort of navigate and maneuver those things. You hate your job and you're trying to figure out if you're gonna, look for another one or start something on your own. All of those things are okay for you to try to plan ahead. But where are you right now? Are you even in a mental space that it will even allow you to be able to pursue that thing? While in your pursuit of that thing, you don't have to sort of even delay it. What smaller step can I take in pursuit of that thing that where my life allows me to do that small step right now? What small skill can I develop right now that will be useful for that ultimate goal? But my life right now as is just does not align with being able to take that big step that I need to take in order to propel myself directly into the path of that purpose. Perhaps you're just not ready yet, right? And so I just wanted, in allowing you to, connect the dots between connecting your passions to purpose, it's super important for you to, one, be able to allow yourself some stillness, to reflect and to figure out what is reasonable for me right now? What is practical for me right now? What does, what my life circumstances are right now? What does it really, in a practical sense, allow me to do, right? And because I don't want you to think that there's nothing for you to do. I don't want you to throw in the towel and be like, oh, all right, well, I'm pregnant now, so I'm just gonna, take the 9 months to just do nothing. One, also recognize that, doing nothing, you're still gonna be doing some, I mean, by virtue of doing the bare minimum, you're gaining skills, you're doing something. Oftentimes, or nothing is a lot to other people. And I'm realizing that too, in the sense of acknowledging the season you are and acknowledging where you are in your life. You also have to, not in a comparison with anyone else, because acknowledging your season, also recognize that your season is personal to you. You can't judge your season based on what the season that someone else is in currently in their life, right? Because the life circumstances are not the same. You're not going through what they're going through. They're not going through what you're going through. Their ability to overcome, is different from your ability to overcome. You never want to put yourself in a position where you're comparing your season to someone else's season. It just wouldn't work, by virtue that you're just in a very different place in life than that person, right? So being able to allow yourself pause and self-reflection to just being able to figure out where you are currently in your season, in your space, in your place in life is a huge step, because it prevents you from having to deal with the anxiety of not doing enough or not doing that thing, because that sort of haunts you too. And it's sort of unfair to yourself to put that burden on yourself when, in all practicality, there's no way that you will be able to accomplish those things anyway, given what you're handling right now, right? And so just being able to allow yourself, the space to recognize your capacity in the moment that you're in the season that you're in. What is my capacity right now? What can I truly handle mentally, physically, with all the other obligations that I have? What steps can I take that's going to be practical and still drive me towards my purpose, but also, within the realm of what I can handle? And those are the questions that you kind of want to ask yourself, right? First, recognizing your season, what season you're in. Am I in a season of growth, or am I in a season of stillness? Or am I in a season of picking up those soft skills that life are going to throw your way anyway, right? And how your mindset and your intentionality is what gets you on the right side of where you want to be. But still, you still have to go through these things, right? The universe is always, always, always going to give you what you need. And so if you are deficient in some way, the universe is going to slap that life, that thing in your life that's going to be at first an adversity. But ultimately, you're going to realize it's not. It was just, a life building skill you are learning that's going to be propelling you closer to your purpose. And so, in recognizing, the place, the season where you are in your life, it allows you to give yourself the grace that you need to not give yourself, put yourself in that sort of frenzy mindset of, or that deficient mindset, or, that feeling of, you're not doing all that you need to do right now. What season are you in? Recognize the season and dare to enjoy the season, right? One of the things that I also recognize in talking about acknowledging the season, I just wish sometimes that I was just more present in the season that I was in. If I was able to take away the guilt that I felt of being, the guilt I felt of being, a mom and not being able to, because obviously, the pressure once you start procreating, you have this now responsibility. You're responsible for a whole nother adult, for a whole nother human being, right? That's ultimately you want them to become a good human adult, right? And so, their financial future, the stability of their financial future is now this additional pressure. So you can't necessarily be complacent in, where you are. You do have that added pressure of, okay, now I got to perform. Now I got to be rich. Now I got to, make sure that I can send these kids to college. You start doing these things and you add these pressure. on yourself, but you also don't recognize that you're in the season of being present, in a season of enjoyment, a season of recognizing the small things that they do that gives you joy. Recognizing that you're in a season of providing fulfillment to somebody that you know kids are the easiest people in that stage to offer that sense of fulfillment to, and what fulfillment that gives you in offering them that sense of fulfillment, when you can put a smile on their face or stop that cry or figure out the problem or figure out the stomach pain. You get that sense of fulfillment, like, yes, I'm getting better at this thing. I'm learning who this individual is. I'm enjoying the birthdays. I'm enjoying the play dates and the connections you're meeting through meeting other parents. You're enjoying the school play. You're enjoying the field trips. You're enjoying the planning for another being, right? And so you have to also recognize that that's just the season that you're in right now, right? Planning for someone else's future is a huge soft skill, you know, a hard skill too, I would argue, that you need, right? Planning for, being able to, in the grand scheme of things, if you are to become an entrepreneur, say your ultimate purpose is to own your own company and become an entrepreneur, you're going to be responsible for the medical benefits of this, of your employees, the health benefits of your employees, the salaries of your employees, the growth, the professional growth of your employees. I mean, these are not just soft skills, right? They're soft skills that you're innately developing that you can use throughout your life. But even in pursuing your passions, those soft skills become hard skills, right? And so even in preparing those soft skills, you're preparing the hard skills that you need in order to continue to when the time comes to connect those dots and put those, turn that passion into purpose, right? Because now you will not only have the skill, you'll know what to do with the skill, when the time comes. So, in acknowledging your season it requires you to have some self-reflection. It requires you to to have some moment of silence, right? A moment of pause. It requires you to be present, and it allows you to give yourself grace in understanding that this is all a part of the process. This is all a part of, pushing you forward to your ultimate purpose. It's teaching you this journey that you're in right now, the season you're in right now is a necessary component of what you need later on in life. So just embrace it, enjoy it, trust the process, and enjoy the journey, right? So I just wanted to implore you guys that in connecting your passion to purpose, one of the most crucial steps is just acknowledging the season you're in. It allows you to be honest with yourself and honest with your goals. And, being true to what's happening around you, being true to who you are, what's happening around you, and the season you're in, it's going to allow you that sense of alignment. It's allowing you to give yourself that grace that it is falling into place. You just can't see it yet. You just have to trust the process. And guys, it doesn't mean just trusting the process, doesn't necessarily mean complacency, right? You can be intentional about working on those soft skills. You can be intentional in knowing that those soft skills ultimately are going to become hard skills that you're going to need, that you're going to pull on later on in life. So be intentional in the moment. Be intentional in your season, okay? And so that's what I'm going to leave you guys with here today. Be intentional in your season, acknowledge the season you're in, and knowing that it's all a part of the process, all a part of the purpose that you're propelling yourself towards that future goal, all right? So thank you so very much, guys, for joining me again on our 5th episode where we're acknowledging the season we're in an effort to continue to connect our passions to our purpose. Join us again on the Korean Connection. I'll see you next. Let's connect. Thank you guys for connecting with me today. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to my channel, The Korean Connection. To connect with me, you can email me at thekoreanconnection@gmail.com. And don't forget that sometimes your passion whispers before it roars. And if you're listening closely, the next episode might be where it gets louder. Let's connect. Push it to the limit, keep going no more.